Hi, everyone. My name is Liz West, and I'm just going to show you a quarter scale, a little shed, just a little bit about the construction, how to put the kit together, and some of the details that it contains. I'm going to switch cameras so you can see the project. There we are. That's the roof of the sheet shed. And here is one side and the front. Now you can see the details on the double doors. I have glued mine partially open. And then the other side has a little bit smaller window. And the back on this project is open for viewing. And it does have beams up in the ceiling, but there is just no way I can show them to you right now. So let's get started. First thing I'm going to show you is the shingling. And with the shingles, what you need to do with your two roof pieces is whatever color you want your shingles to be at the end is the color that you should paint all around the edges, about a 1/2 inch around the tops, and also the edges of the wood. And because the roof overhangs a little bit, you also need to do around the other side. This center part will be the inside of the shed and will be done as the ceiling piece. Okay, so first thing you do is you have a plain piece of shingle and you glue that onto the bottom. And the reason you do that is when you're putting your shingles on and you paint them, you want the identical material in there, the identical paper in there, so that it all looks the same. If you didn't do that, you'd have these little spaces between the shingles that would just be raw wood, which you painted, but they won't be the same texture. So that just makes it look better in the end. And the shingles are offset. These are an octagon shaped shingle, and you glue them on offset so that the pointy end of the shingle goes down in the halfway between the other shingles. Okay, so, and you leave a little bit at the end. Now, this one doesn't quite fit, but that's okay, because all you need to do is take another strip, cut them, and add it in there so that it matches completely. And I will put a full strip on here. And if you think you might go crooked or want to make sure that your shingles are straight, just take a pencil and your ruler and put a little mark, a little pencil mark on both sides, about a 1/2 inch apart. And that way you'll make sure your shingles are straight. And if you do your two roof pieces all at once, then they will be even. Now, when you go to do the next row of shingles, again, you're going to offset it. And you just build your rows just like that. And then when they're all dry, cut them off, both sides, and give them the nice coat of paint. Now, if you want a little bit of aging on them, dry brush another color on top of them. And if you want to add a little bit of aging or detail to it, you just use some dollar store eyeshadow and run that over your shingles, just up and down like this, and this will age them very nicely for you if you don't want to use paint. Okay, so now you've got your roof done. You can just put them aside. They're actually the last thing that you put on your house, but you have shingles left over. And you can use them on another project, or you can use up some of them this way. This is a 1/4 scale armoire, and I've just cut 2 shingles to put on the side. So instead of it being very plain, you can put the shingles and then paint it or stain it, and your shingles just look like a little bit of detailing on it. Here's a little bench, and I've done the same thing on the front. It just adds a little bit extra to it if you like to do that. Okay, and I have just lost my other pieces here. Completely lost them. Yes. Sorry, they were tucked under there. The other thing you can do is you can take 2 layers. Now this is actually 4 layers of shingles. I put 2 together on the top and 2 together on the bottom. And this makes for a very nice crown molding, trim around your porch, or anything else that you just want to add a little bit of architectural detailing to. So there's a couple of ideas for you to use up your shingles if you're not going to use them on another project. And I'll show you here. This is the front of a counter. And you can see I put a strip of shingles on there, and I painted half of them. So you see they blend in very nicely, but just give that little bit of dimension on your piece. Okay, so that's the shingles. Now this is a board and batten style cottage shed, and you can see the batten part of it is all cut in one piece and matches up exactly with your walls. So you paint your wall a solid color, and your batten can be any color that you like. What I found though is if you try to paint it a dark color and then paint your batten in a white or a very contrasting color, it gets a little circusy or that. So a couple of tones different. Now what I did on mine is I dry brushed my wall in white before I glued the batten onto it. You can see it a little more here on the front. See, I've got the white in there, and then I put the painted batten on top of it. Okay, and it just gives a little added detail to it and makes it look great. Your walls are cut from MDF. Your windows and doors are cut out of it. And all you do is glue, match up your edges, and glue your board and your batten to each wall. Now you notice here with the front, there's a space down here. And that's because there is actually a groove cut in your floor and your front wall goes right down in those slots to give it stability and just makes it look better. So again, your batten just gets glued right on it. But that's why when you go to put it on, there is that space at the bottom. And on the front, and on the front only, you will find you have green tape with 3 separate pieces of batten. And that is the only way I could figure out how to get this so that it fit on there correctly. So those 3 pieces will have to be glued on separately once you've got your wall in place. And once you have got it in place, then your frames go right in and fit right in there after you've painted them. Okay, and the same with your door frame. Just fits right in there nicely. Okay, now on the inside of your walls, you also have frames. And they go, once you have painted or papered it, here's a wall that has been papered. You put your frame right on there, and that just neatens everything up. Now you will notice, I hold this up closer, you can see where I actually cut my wallpaper back a little bit. I put the whole thing on, and then I use a sharp X-Acto and cut the wallpaper out. But then when I have finished that, I will take my ruler and I will just trim away about a 32nd of an inch, and it will scrape up. And that helps prevent the layering that you might see in your windows and your doors and your openings. Now, one thing I did not do on this piece is I did not paint my openings. But I do suggest you do that before you put your wallpaper, your there, this one's open. Your wallpaper or your space is getting in the way. Your wallpaper or your batten on. Before you put your frames on, paint the openings of your windows and doors. Now, as you can see, I've got white frames, and you can see the white of the wall that I painted there. And then right at the back is the white of the internal frame as well. It just neatens up your openings, and then you can glue your windows in after you have put your house together, or you can do it now, whichever you're most comfortable with. Now, I mentioned the beams on the inside. When your walls go on, they go on the outside of your floor, and best with the wallpaper inside. They go on the outside of your floor, and they are cut with a castle-like top on them, so that once you've got them on, your beams will just fit right in there. My walls are wiggly. Okay, and of course you'll be gluing them in, and your walls are glued on. But that gives you a very nice looking beam, a nice finish to the ceiling of your shed. Now, one other thing I wanted to mention is if you decide to put a baseboard on your walls. The floor is 1/8 of an inch. So if you're going to glue your baseboard on before you glue it onto your floor, make sure you measure and know where it goes. And again, I also do on these, I will use my X-Acto knife and I will trim my wallpaper away and peel it off. This has been glued on for a long time. There it is. And why I do that is because then you're gluing wood to wood, which has a much better adhesion than gluing wood to paper. And if you're doing a crown molding, and this would be a good place to use up your shingles if you wanted to. This molding is a piece of wood that goes right up to the ceiling, and then the molding goes on. Or you could just take a decorative piece and put it right up at the top. Okay. Now, what else? When you have your walls on, then you can attach your roof pieces, and that will, and then attach it to the, oh, look at there. There's the beams. I got it at the right angle. Okay. Now you can see my ceiling is white. I like white ceilings. I do all my ceilings in white, but I don't paint them. What I actually use is I use 140-pound watercolor paper that I buy from Amazon. Okay, and it is nice and heavy. This one reason I do it is so I don't get any paint streaks. I'm not the best painter, but it also covers up any imperfections in the wood. But the main reason that I use it is because it is thick enough that I can hide my wires if I'm lighting my project. And I do tend to light all my projects. I love lighting. To me, there's nothing better. This is a prototype that of a clock that I did, but I do have the paper. You can see the paper on there, and it doesn't matter what light you're using. You can hide those wires under the paper, give a nice clean look to your ceiling, and you know, it's not that expensive. Okay. Doors and windows. The doors and windows in this kit are layered. Okay, they have a nice scribed design on them, very country looking, which means you have to go very easy with the paint. The paint will fill them in and you will lose that detail. This one here that I've done is actually stained, and it's hard to see the detail. You can really see it in person, but it's hard to see it on camera. So you do your doors and then they get glued back to back. So you have your nice detail on the outside of your house. You also have it on the inside of the house. Now I did mine. I did my doors in the green to match the outside, and I did them in the white to match the inside. You can do them both in the same color or whatever you choose. You can also glue a piece of transparency in between them to give you a real nice window look to it. And the doors and the windows, all the pieces just fit right inside your frames. So when you glue these into the cutouts in your wall, and you can do it one of two ways. You can do it so that they are right flush with the outside of your wall, and that gives you a little bit of a windowsill effect on the inside. Or you can do it the opposite, and you can glue them flush on the inside, giving yourself a little bit of a windowsill on the outside. So that's your choice. You can do it whichever way you like. The house can go on the base anywhere you want. I have set mine close to the back because although that's the opening for the viewing, I don't plan on doing any landscaping back there. Now, what I did like to do on the side, and this is just a faux stone graphic. The porch is included. It's actually attached to your floor. And then I just used the same stone graphic. And I put a little bit along here so I can come out, walk along here. And I had a pergola here with a nice bench so I could sit and enjoy a cup of coffee. And that's a perfect size for it. Now the pergola is separate from the kit, but I want to show you just how to create one of your own. Just let me get a little bit of room here. So the first thing I did was I drew out the size on a piece of paper. And I'm using 2.5 by 1.5 because that is a lovely size for a bench and a little table. And I can sit and enjoy the outdoors. So in order to make a pergola, I use some strip wood. I have some 1/8 by 1/8 strip wood. This is the size of the pergola that is in the kit. And yes, it has fancy corbels and that to hold it up. But you don't need that if you like to make your own. So you use the 1/8 by 1/8 strip wood and cut your pieces and glue them together in the size that you want your pergola top. And then I used 1/32, excuse me, 1/32 thick by, I believe, 1/8 wide. Excuse me. This is very dry. So what you do is you cut the pieces and you cut them a little bit longer than your length of your pergola. I'm just going to move the camera down a little bit because it'll be easier to see these smaller pieces. There we are. Give it a second to adjust. So you cut them a little bit longer and you just glue them on your top. Now, if you don't like the blunt ends when you have cut your strip wood, just use a little bit of sandpaper or emery board and just round the corners a little bit. And that just gives it a nicer finish on the ends. So you glue your sticks in. Now you might want to arrange them before you glue them so that you get them in the right width apart. And once you have gotten them glued on, then you take the shorter ones and all you do is just measure. If you're going 2.5 for your length, then you do 3 inches on your sticks, and that gives you a nice little 1/4 inch there, or you can make them shorter, your preference. And then you just glue the shorter pieces on the top. And they don't want to stay there, of course. But that's all it takes to make a nice top, open top pergola. Okay, I've got one done here. Okay, and see, it looks very nice. And then again, you take that 1/8 by 1/8 and cut it to make the 4 legs. And I cut them 2 inches long, which is 8 feet high. And that's fine. That's a good size. And you can have just the plain sticks. You can even use dowels if you prefer a rounded look to them. Okay, you don't have to use the square. You can use dowels. Okay, and you can have the 4 feet so that they can actually stick into holes you have cut. But that's a little hard to do on your own. Let's say they just stand in there. But unless you're good at cutting holes in a base, then I would suggest, this is a pony bead. This one is a pony bead. And this one is the bottom part of Christmas lights. You know those strings of Christmas lights? I just use the bottoms, cut off the wire, pull out the lights, and I use the bottoms of them. They cut nicely with your X-Acto knife, and you can just cut them right off. So you've got a nice pot. Now, whether you use it on your pergola or you put it in the window of your she shed, which is right here. I just painted this one in a goldy color and put a little bit of flower soft in there. And I've got a nice pot of flowers in my window. Of course, you can also use the punched out flowers if that's what you like to do. So now you've got feet, pots, you need to do something with them. Well, the easiest thing to do and the most economical is you get some butcher's twine. I say butcher's twine because you want something that is cotton. You don't want any kind of string will use, crochet cotton, anything you like. You don't want anything with nylon or polyester in it because that is difficult to glue. And you can just take your paint, and I use brown for my vines, and you can just pounce the brown on it, okay, to color it. You can separate it. This happens to be it just separates in, it will separate into 3. Each one is now a different size. And if you do it in a light brown, then you can come back with a darker brown or a gray or black, whatever you like. I happen to like my vines in a brown. And you can darken it up in places here and there, or you can actually make it as dark as you want. And when you untwist it, you got some white spots showing, which again, you just come back with your brush and fill it in to make them look like vines. Now these you can glue into your pot, twist it up the legs of your pergola, and then separate it out and put it all around the top of your pergola, like you've got flowers, vines, leaves growing up there. You can fill it in as much as you want with your vine and come up from different legs. And some of it you might want to keep fairly thick, like you've got thick vines up there. And then you want to add a little bit of color. First, you want to add some leaves. So all you do is you take some of your landscaping, some of your ground cover, and I don't have the ground cover or that on my website or Etsy site, but I do sell it. You just have to email me, because sometimes you just don't want to buy the huge amount that comes in big bags. Okay, so you take that and you can either, oh, sorry, white glue is just out of reach. You can just take your white glue and you might want to water it down a little bit or not, whichever you like. But just put some white glue all over your vines. And even on some of your wood pieces, and then just sprinkle on your green ground cover. Well, I use Superleaf. I like Superleaf. It has a definition to it where ground cover is very singular sizing. And just sprinkle it over. Dust it off, and then you've got the greenery starting on your vines. Now, once you get to this stage, you can use hairspray, cheap, sticky hairspray you buy at the dollar store. The stickier, the better, because that will hold that greenery on there until you're finished the project. Now, you don't buy, it won't by any means hold it forever. It's just a temporary measure to hold it, your greenery on, until you get your project finished and can spray it the way you normally would when you use your greenery when you're doing your landscaping. Okay, but that's all. You just, I haven't got near enough vines on here. I just wanted to show you how you can add a little pergola to any scene that you want. Okay, now that is a much better in the greenery, but then you're going to want a little bit of color. So you do the hairspray, and while the hairspray is nice and wet, put your can down and immediately spray your colored flowers. Now I'm just putting a little bit more glue on because I don't have my hairspray within reach here. And then you just add, again, I like the Super Leaf. This is actually Flower Soft. It's just the bag that I picked up. And that will give you nice vines with leaves and flowers on the top of your pergola to finish it off. Okay, now, and using this string to do the vines, you can put them in any pot of flowers. You can have it hanging out so that it just looks great, and you can use it in any scale. That is the beauty of it. Now, another thing I wanted to show you is, see my nice tree? This is actually a toothpick. And I didn't cut the end off, so I wanted to show you. I just used brown stain on the toothpick, and I put some glue on it and some of the clump foam where I wanted it. And there you have a nice tree that you can stand in your garden. And you can fill it in as much as you want, or leave it with the trunk showing, which looks very natural, I think. Okay, so that's just another little thing. And here's another idea. This is actually covered wire, cloth covered wire, probably 32 gauge. That's usually what I buy. And again, you're going to paint it. I use green because this is a flower stem. I put a blob of glue on the end and dip this in the Super Leaf or the Flower Soft. And in this case, Flower Soft might be nicer. And you have a great filler flower that can go in your garden. And that leaves the really pretty flowers that you like to do with punches and everything in the front of your garden, and the fillers go in the back. Now here's another idea. It's the same type, just a filler flower, only I did it a little bit longer. This is 12th scale. I did it a little bit more on the wire, put it in a bead, and it sits on the shelf. Or again, for 12th scale, this is an 1.25 inch bead. So it's like what, 15-inch vase. And I have used several colors and did the same thing. I just covered with the wire with glue and added the Flower Soft to it. And it makes a great bouquet to sit in your room. Okay. One other thing I was going to show you, and you probably know this, you probably do it, but just in case, you can always get lots of plastic looking pieces at the dollar store, and they're fine. They look good. They're you know, they look really nice. It's nice ferny stuff, and we're, you know, back to 12th or 1/4 scale. But if you just take your green paint and give it a nice stiff brush on it, And you can use two colors. Two colors look fabulous. It takes it beyond the plastic look and makes it look much more realistic to go in your garden. Okay, or in your flower pots. I use a lot of this in my flower pots. I'm not much of a flower making person. I don't have the patience for all those punchy flowers and everything. I tend to use a lot of plastic, and to stop it from looking so much like plastic, I use the paint. And at the same time, you can also, either while your paint is wet, or again, that hairspray, I just dipped it in the greenery and the flowers that I had used on the top of the pergola. And then I would cut it off, probably cut the stems, the pieces off, because I would use it in the quarter scale. But that also gives you a little bit of color and a plant-like item to put in your house or your room box, because plants bring your room to life. They really do. And I think that just about wraps up what I have to show you today. I'll be doing another video to show you how to use that ceiling paper, and doing the lighting for both quarter and 12th scale, both when you have the rooms already decorated, or when you're just starting out. Because sometimes, like this shed, when I first designed it, I had no intention of lighting it. Now, of course, I certainly would light it. And it's very easy before you put your roof on to put lights in there and run the wires down, and either hide them outside is the easiest thing, under a rock, amongst a bush, or whatever. So I think that's it for me today. That's about all I have going on. So I hope you enjoyed this, and please do send me pictures and show me when you do any of the projects. Okay, thanks now.